life-threatening illness. I was raised in a Jamaican family, much like Dr. Bryce and Sister Hortensia, where we have lots of white flour. We have very rich, thick foods, and we ate. We ate when there was a celebration. We ate. When we were happy, we ate. When we were sad, we ate. We just ate to be eating. When we were hungry, we ate, so we just ate. I'll just let you know, Dr. Bryce has been my doctor for about 4 years, and I've seen him about 5 or 6 times. 5 of those 6 times has been in the last month. Okay. Months ago, I started feeling very tired. I have a prayer partner, and for those of you who do not have a prayer partner, I encourage that. I have a prayer partner who also happens to be my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, and who also happens to be a pastor. And we prayed about my tiredness. I thought it was my anemia, because I've been borderline anemic since 1999. And I pray every single day, God gives me the strength to be able to deal today. Words weren't coming to me the way that they should, and it progressively got worse. I was drinking about 15 bottles of water per day. My mouth was dry. It was like paste. I was lethargic. My brain was foggy. My eyes started getting blurry. I was running to the bathroom every hour. I thought the reason I was tired is because I wasn't getting enough sleep. I lost about 27 pounds, and by that Friday, this all happened probably about 3 weeks ago. By that Friday, I knew I had to make an appointment with Dr. Bryce. See, we tend to reach for our physicians when we're in a time of crisis, as opposed to being sustained by our physicians so we can avoid crisis. So I made my appointment that Friday for the Wednesday because there was nothing else available. He's a very busy man. So that Friday, it got so bad that I stayed in bed. From the time I got home, I couldn't even prepare for the Sabbath the way that I wanted to. And I got home, and all I could do was do my dishes and lay down. I stayed in bed. I went from the shower to another pair of pajamas and went right back to bed. That Sunday, I had tingling in my legs. There were going spasms in my calves all the way through my feet. I was scared. By Monday morning, I was so sick and tired that my dad had to drive me to Dr. Bryce's office in faith because he had no appointments available. So we're driving, and we're about 15, I live in Mesquite. So we're driving, and we're about 15 minutes from Dr. Bryce's office, and I got someone answered the phone, and I said, I need to see Dr. Bryce today. I know my appointment's for Wednesday, but I need to see him today. And they said, well, Dr. Bryce is all booked up, but you can see his physician's assistant. And I said, I don't care, I just need to be there, but please let Dr. Bryce know that I was coming. Just tell him it's Colleen, because he knows me by Lisa at church, but when there's something wrong, he knows me by Colleen. So when on the way, I had to use the restroom, we had to stop and use the restroom several times, or I did. I had to stop and use the restroom several times because I had to go so frequently. When I got there, they did a finger stick and a urinalysis. My levels were off the chart. They didn't read. I didn't know what was wrong. I was in denial. We thought it could be a vitamin deficiency, but the physician's assistant said, most likely it's diabetes. I've never seen a number this high and it not be diabetes. So she sent me over to the lab to have urgent blood work and to follow up with her the next day. So I went home that afternoon and slept. I slept until the next morning when I got a call from Dr. Bryce's office, and Dr. Bryce had instructed them to tell me to come into the office now. So on the way, I was running into traffic, and I said, hey, my dad was driving me. Hey, Dr. Bryce, to the person that answered the phone. And she said, I'm so glad you called. Dr. Bryce has been trying to get in touch with you. Let me pass you through to him now. And Dr. Bryce gets on the phone and he says, hey, how are you feeling? And I said, Dr. Bryce, I'm just tired. I'm so tired. And Dr. Bryce says to me, you need to go to the emergency room right now. He said, what we're dealing with is your blood sugar is almost 700. He told me I had diabetes. I couldn't hear anything else. He told me to go to the emergency room. And so I went to Baylor Parkland, and on the way there, I had to stop to use the restroom. I got to the bathroom. We're amongst family. Y'all aren't going to see me anymore, so I won't be embarrassed. But I got to the restroom, and I could barely even stoop to give my sample. My legs were so weak. The lady at the front desk gave me some paperwork to complete, and as they were running the tests, she came back, she said, stop what you're doing. The nurse came out to get me, and immediately they were pulling me through and asking me to disrobe and putting IVs in me, and all they can hear is you need fluids, and it was a lifespan. And Dr. Bryce had told me on the phone as well to make sure that whoever was treating me, that they called him immediately. So Dr. Ano comes into my room. I'm just in a daze at this point, and she tells me, you have acute ketoacidosis. For those of you who don't know what that is, I didn't. She said, your blood sugar is so high that it is now poison in you. You need to be admitted into the hospital. We've got to get your levels balanced, because right now it's at a life-threatening stage. So she called and she spoke with Dr. Bryce several times. Dr. Bryce was very much involved and kept in constant contact with the doctors. My mom was with me. I was scared. I felt alone. I got a call from my sister saying she was coming by to see me, and when she came, she had an overnight bag, and I said, well, how long are you going to stay? She said, as long as you need me. That's what God does. Sorry. I'd never been hospitalized for anything. I was terrified. My sister had to bathe me and lotion me and wash my hair because I was too tired to do it for myself. When I was there, I had finger sticks every hour, blood draws every 4 hours, magnesium drips, potassium drips, insulin drips, ultrasound, more blood work, vitals, clear liquid diet for 2 days, shots to keep my blood from clotting, pills for this, IVs for this. I gained 14 pounds back of the 27 that I had lost. By day 3, they took me off the liquid diet and put me on a low-carb diet. They took me off the insulin. And the nurse came in and said, we have to show you how to do this on your own. She came in with syringes. I'd always said to myself, there's no way in the world I'd ever be able to give myself an injection, but when your life depends on it, you don't worry about what you could never do. You just do it. Exactly. So all my IVs are disconnected, and my doctor says you're going home. So the nurse comes in with discharge papers, and she says, make sure you take your levels before each meal. Then you need to take metformin, which are these pills, twice a day. You need to take Humalog, which is an injectable. You need to take this on a sliding scale, depending on where your levels fall while you're before your meals. Then you need to take 50 units of Lantus at night, which is another injectable at 9 o'clock, which is half the amount of what can fit in this syringe. They put me on a carb diet. They told me this amount for breakfast, and this different amount for lunch, and this amount for dinner, and then a snack, and keep the snack and the glucometer by your bed in case it runs low. If it's cold, and if you feel cold and clammy, eat some candy. And I didn't want to leave because I was scared to do all of this on my own. I was overwhelmed. These are too many instructions. I just don't know what to do. Lord, help me. I felt I couldn't survive without the comfort of medical professionals around me, and God reminded me, he said, silly girl, I created these health professionals, and you look to them for comfort? Fear not. Fear is not from God. The Bible instructs us to never be afraid, because God is always with us, even in the midst of adversity.
Yes.
We have a prayer line at my church. I got on the prayer line every single day. Sometimes I didn't say anything because I knew my name was already being lifted. My sister did the prayer line that Thursday, and there was a nurse that would come into the room and take my vitals, and she came in that morning. She was always very loud, and we just loved her, but it was very early, and she came in that morning exceptionally quiet. And she overheard my sister telling the devotion. Typically, like I said, it was very noisy, but she was very quiet that day. And she said to my sister that that morning she felt such a sense of peace in my room and comfort. She stayed around the sink, and she just stayed longer than she would have normally because she was listening to God's word as she was putting her stuff together. She just wanted to stay in the calm and the peace that only the Holy Spirit could provide in my room. And that's how I know that God has brought me through.
Amen.
My prayer partner, Keith, picked me up when I was finally able to be discharged. And we dropped off my prescriptions at Walmart. And they said it would be a couple hours before they were filled. And one was a glucometer, and they told me to pick one out. When we came back to pick up my prescriptions, and they told me it was $853 for 1 month's supply. What do? You just do it. You take money out of savings, you do what you need to do. So I get home and I realize I didn't have my test strips. And I was overwhelmed because they gave me all these different instructions about things I had to do. Take your insulin here and there, and depending on here and there, and inject it. It was overwhelming. My mind went blank. What do I eat? How much medicine am I supposed to give? What am I forgetting? I don't have any test strips. I had a complete meltdown. But I'm not ashamed because I know that was God reminding me that I can do nothing in my own strength, but only in His. I got through the weekend with God sending me angels through texts and phone calls and family, and even from England and my mom's prayer line and prayers of the saints and family. And Monday morning, I went to go see Dr. Bryce. He told me that my A1C level, do you know what A1C level is? Okay, some of you may not. The A1C level determines how long you've had diabetes. The typical level or the normal level is about 5 or 6 or lower. Mine was at 12.5. He said that's the highest he'd ever seen, and he stressed to me that it's only through God's grace and mercy that I am still alive. Many of you are looking at me and saying, maybe thinking, well, I wonder, that couldn't happen to me, because I would look at people that would present and I would say, that could never happen to me. Friends, I am 44 years old. I am still very young. So it can happen to you. I've never been diagnosed with diabetes before now. He told me I was a walking miracle and asked me if now was I ready to listen to what God told him to tell me. He said I'd been avoiding him for years. I saw him 1 year and didn't go back. As much as I talked about how wonderful he is as a physician, I didn't follow my own advice until it was too late. So he prayed with me. He gave me some scriptures and talked me through a plan, and went to see a dietitian that Wednesday, and she gave me a chart and pulled and put my diet to 2 to 3 carbs per meal. And in the midst of all of this, I'm just overwhelmed. And she says, I know that this seems like a lot right now, but I just want to let you know how lucky you are that God has placed a disease in your life that helps save your life. That helped save your life, because had it not been for this, you would not change your habits. You would not change your way of thinking. You would not change the fact that you don't realize You are a child of God, and you're worth more than you are treating your temple, than the way you are treating your temple.